Hello, this is Randy. Welcome back to Brain Break with Randy and Keitho. I wanted to talk just a little bit about how things have changed in my life. I know I keep doing this, but sorry, not sorry. It's interesting to me as I look back on my life and see how things have changed. My first job out of college was as a literally a business door-to-door salesman. I carried a bag. I worked for a company, became quite successful for a year where I would go up and down the street, demonstrate products. And I mean, I had some of the largest companies in the city of El Paso purchasing from me because I had really good products. I think it partly because I made good friends with the right people. I took good care of them. It was an amazing business. My wife would write a thank you card to every single customer. When I would come and see them again, whether it be a week, like I did with some of the hospitals and the larger restaurants, hotels, or a month, I would see the thank you card from my wife pinned up on a bulletin board almost always. I can't tell you how much I appreciated that. It was amazing that she would do that. She used the same products at home, was able to tell them about her own experiences with these products. The guys that I called on would actually say, "Your wife's a better salesman than you." And she is. She never thought of herself that way, but she really is good. She's a great writer. Worked with that company for about a year. And then I got a call from a headhunter that said that a large company was looking for somebody to call on restaurants and hotels in the area. And they wanted to talk to me because I had their largest customers. It turned out this company was Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble is a big company. They make products like Crisco. They make products like Crest, Scope, mouthwash, Pampers, diapers, Huggies. On the side that I worked for, we made shortening and oils as well as coffee, which is Folgers. We had cleaning products like Tide, Joy, Comet Liquid. We also sold the little bar soaps that you see in hotels and shampoos and toothpaste. And this is when hotels started giving amenities. That was a really good business. It was fun. I was with them for several years, was quite successful. It was a bit of a change because I had to start wearing suits. With my other job, I rarely wore suits unless I went into, say, a hospital or was calling on the manager of a hotel or something like that. But with Procter & Gamble, it was required that I wear a suit. And quite a little bit of our income went to buying those suits when I first started because I had a suit to wear to church, maybe a couple, but I didn't wear a suit every day like I ended up with Procter & Gamble. Also, there was a dress code. It couldn't be too outrageous. You didn't wear a summer suit when you worked for Procter & Gamble, like the light blue seersucker suits. There was no such thing as a Procter & Gamble polo shirt. Never saw that when I worked for them in the early 80s. I had to wear my suits at first started out just being wash and wear type suits because that's all I could afford. But pretty soon there, I was wearing wool suits, and silk suits. I was, looking pretty good. My wife took good care of me, and I wore. There was only three shirts that were allowed at that time. They were a blue or white Oxford cloth shirt, or a blue and white striped Oxford cloth shirt, always with button-down collars. And you had to have a tie that tied. Shoes were wingtips, black, never brown. If you had a pair of brown shoes, you couldn't wear it with blue. It sounds kind of crazy, but those were just kind of rules that they expected you to obey. One day I had a manager from out of town show up to work with me, and I was wearing my most expensive pair of slacks. The slacks alone cost more than a couple of the suits that I wore regularly. And then I wore a very nice blazer that was a wool blazer, and I looked great. But I actually got in trouble because I wasn't wearing a suit. I was wearing a sport coat in his mind. It was, even though it was a blazer. I got chewed out by my boss's boss about that because I let him down. I didn't obey the dress code. So as I've watched how things have changed, there are probably still some industries where people are still wearing suits to make their visits with their customers. But in doctor's offices, I will see guys come in just a polo shirt, and they're carrying a bag. Now, obviously, they're a pharmaceutical sales rep. They're not wearing suits anymore. I can't imagine who is doing it that way. I know my last few sales jobs, my uniform was basically Typically, work boots, Levi's, a polo shirt. Things have changed as far as dress code. The reason I didn't like wearing a suit when I worked for Procter and Gamble is because I was in and out of restaurants on a typical day. All and we were working with deep fat fryers, griddles, and the shortening and oil that goes on them. Occasionally, I'm demonstrating either how to clean or whatever, and I can't tell you how many deep fat fried silk ties I had. And you dip a tie in, and then you've got to make sure that you get it off without getting it all over you, the oil. And so you end up cutting it off, and it's ruined. But it's ruined anyway because you dipped it in hot oil. And or you'd lay a tie on a griddle. It was frustrating to me because our customers were typically wearing chef's clothes in a restaurant. Whenever somebody would say, "Hey, it's too hot in here for you to wear that coat, take it off," I was happy to take my coat off. I was very highly rated with the company. I was with them for 4 or 5 years, and even in my first year, I was ranked like number one in the company as far as sales, competitions, placing new products. I really worked hard, and I tried to be smart about it. They had a lot of the territory which had never been visited out in rural New Mexico. He went and saw those folks and really built up the business. One of my largest accounts, believe it or not, was Carlsbad Caverns. If you ever go to Carlsbad Caverns, go hungry. And at the end of your 2 or 3 hour trip into the caverns, they have amazing fried chicken. And for the amount of time that they are open in the summer, they are, or were, I'm not sure if they still are, but they were the largest user of frying oil, shortening, in the country, in the United States. They would outdo Disney World through those 4 months. That's how many visitors they had. And by the way, their fried chicken was excellent. But I had a lot of fun with that company. I really enjoyed it. Am I sorry I ever left? Yes and no. The managers I had, well, they were good men. They didn't. So I moved on and did other things. And I enjoyed where my life ended up. One of my coworkers was wearing a pair of, they had the wingtip designs, but they weren't really wingtips. And wingtips, they were a pretty traditional shoe. They had a thick, thick leather sole on them. And you would wear those. And back in the day, I mean, in the 80s, when I was a young man, a young married guy starting out, you wouldn't buy a new pair of shoes. You would take it and have it resold at a shoe repair store. And I learned that by using shoe trees, I could make those shoes last forever compared to my coworkers who were buying less expensive shoes and they didn't last a long time. So my whole concept of that is still, you got to look your best. And I won't tell you I miss wearing a suit. I don't. But it was kind of neat, always being dressed up. But, when you wear a suit, you then have the expense of dry cleaning and pressing. And, you can only press it so many times before, it probably needs to go to the cleaners. And that's an expense we don't have anymore. I mean, my suits, I wear them so rarely that I might have to get them cleaned every 4 to 6 months. It's just not something I wear very often. In the summer months here, if it's the least bit warm, you will not catch me wearing a jacket or a sport coat to church or anything. If it's a funeral, I might wear a suit. And that's about it anymore. So the world has changed a lot. So all I can say is be grateful for the new dress code, and I hope you have an enjoyable day. Thank you so much.